In this video you will learn how to use breakpoints to open lines and go for the attack. The game started with e4. Black responded with d6, the Pirc defense. White responded d4, occupying the center with his pawns. Black played knight f6, developing the king's knight to a good square and attacking the e4 pawn. White responded knight c3, developing the queen's knight and defending the e4 pawn. Black played bishop g7, with the idea of developing the king's bishop on the g7 square, where it will be very well placed since it will occupy the large diagonal of dark squares and exert pressure in the center. Knight f3, developing the king's knight towards its natural square and increasing its control over the central squares. Bishop g7, developing the king's bishop and preparing to castle. Bishop e3, developing the queen's bishop to a good square, from where it reinforces the defense of the d4 pawn and increases control over the c5 square. So, black c5 break will be difficult to carry out. Black castled. Queen d2, mobilizing the queen and preparing to castle on the long side. At the same time, white is preparing to invade the h6 square with his bishop in the future. Bishop g4, developing the queen's bishop and attacking the knight on f3, with the idea of exchanging pieces and simplifying the position. Knight g5, removing the knight from the opposing bishop's line of attack to avoid piece exchanges. White can continue with moves like f3 or h3 to force the enemy bishop to retreat. Now, black played c6, taking control over the d5 and b5 squares to limit the mobility of the opponent's knight. At the same time, black prepares to advance his pawns on the queen side to initiate the attack in that area and try to create counterplay. White answered f3, connecting the pawns and attacking the enemy bishop, with the idea of forcing it to retreat. Black answered bishop c8. Now, white played h4, starting to advance his pawns on the king side to attack against the enemy king. White's plan is to advance with h5, to take advantage of the breaking point on h5, with the idea of then capturing on g6 to open the h-file for the attack. Now, black responded h5, to stop the advance of the white pawn and try to repel the attack. Now, the white pawn cannot advance to h5, but a new breaking point has appeared on g4. So, now the new plan for white will be to prepare the break with g4, to take advantage of the new breaking point on g4 and open lines for the attack. White castled on the queenside. Black responded with b5, beginning to advance his queenside pawns to attack in this area and try to create counterplay. White responded g4, taking advantage of the breaking point on g4. White will be able to increase the pressure with the knight maneuver e2 to f4, to finally capture on h5 and open lines for the attack. Black played h takes g4. White answered h5, sacrificing a second pawn, with the idea of opening lines for the attack. If black now plays g takes h5, white can follow up with queen h2, threatening e5, to drive out the f6 knight and then capture the h5 pawn and open the h-file. White has a decisive attack. In the game, black played knight takes h5. The game continued f takes g4. Bishop takes g4. White played bishop e2. If black now plays bishop takes e2, white would continue queen takes e2, threatening rook takes h5, with a decisive attack. In the game black played bishop d7, removing the bishop to prevent it from being captured. White replied bishop takes h5, eliminating the opponent's knight, which is a good defender of the opponent's castling. Now, the lines are going to be open on the king side and the black king is in danger of being checkmated. The game continued g takes h5. Rook takes h5. Now, white threatens to rook h8, which would lead to mate. Black played f6, with the idea of forcing the white knight to retreat and try to repel the attack. But now white played rook g1, ignoring the threat on the knight and incorporating the queen rook into the attack on the king side. A very important technique for the success of the attack is to incorporate all the pieces into the attack. White attacks with the maximum number of pieces and has a decisive attack. Now, it wouldn't be good to f takes g5, since white would play rook h takes g5 and white is winning. Since in the case of rook f7, then follows queen h2 with the threat rook h5 and the black king will not resist many more moves. In the game, after the rook moved g1, black played e5, trying to react in the center. White answered rook h8 check. A very good move. White sacrifices the rook to divert the enemy bishop and leave the opposing king unprotected. Bishop takes h8. Knight e6 with a discovered check and the black queen is lost. The game continued king f7. Knight takes d8 check. Rook takes d8. Queen h2. Black is completely defenseless. Black played e takes d4. And after bishop takes d4. Black played knight a6, trying to complete the development of his pieces. The game continued knight e2. Rook f8. Queen h7 check and black resigned. In summary, the 150 attack is a very effective attack method against the opponent's fianchetto. It is very easy to play and white's main idea is to take advantage of the breakpoint on h5 to open the h-file. If black plays h5 to stop the advance of the white pawn, white can adapt his plans and try to take advantage of the new breaking point on g4, and even sacrifice two pawns to open lines and attack against the enemy king.